Hi guys, welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about my camera. Might be a boring topic. If you want to skip this one, that's perfectly fine. But I just picked up a new camera. This is now my 4th or 5th camera that I've done. So I'll talk about that and the progression, why I went through so many cameras and some decisions that I wish that I'd made differently, and where I'm at now and why I'm excited about it and what it's going to mean for the channel. So to start off, when I started this channel 2.5 years ago, I thought that it was going to be, I don't know, if it was going to be short-lived, if I was going to actually do it for a long time, if I was going to enjoy doing it, if it was going to be fun. So I started off where everybody starts off, which is an iPhone or an Android phone, I guess, if you like green texts. But I started off with an iPhone and I recorded with my iPhone. I had a 13 and it worked okay. It was fine. The first problem that you start running into when you're recording with an iPhone is the microphone. The built-in microphone isn't great. It picks up a lot of echo. It's not great at noise canceling because it can't really noise cancel your voice. So you end up going and buying something called a lavalier mic. And a lavalier mic, I'm using one right here. This is a Rode, but a lavalier mic that is compatible with the iPhone. There's really, there's one that's pretty popular, which is the Samson Go Mic Mobile, which is what I actually bought originally. It's like $200, it's a full set. There's a transmitter and a receiver, and it comes with a lavalier. That setup worked decently well. The problem was the range was poor, and you didn't really know when the range was poor because you didn't know that your audio was breaking up until you're like editing it in post. So you end up, I'd have the camera sitting in the driveway recording something as I'm washing the car, and then all of a sudden the audio would cut out because I walked behind the car, and then there's a portion of video that I have to edit out or have to voice over, and just created a lot of extra editing work, and I stopped trusting the microphone. Well, and then the secondary problem with using the iPhone is that you use your iPhone for other things, right? You're sending text messages, you're getting phone calls, you're doing other things, right? So if you're recording using a normal camera and you get a phone call, you answer the phone call, you come back to the camera when you're done, maybe pause your recording, maybe you don't, and you just edit it out. But I would regularly get a call or get a text or something like that, and then that would interrupt my recording on my phone, and you'd answer the call, and then all of a sudden your recording's paused. Or if I was doing something that was a longer sequence that I was going to speed up and go through, like polishing a car, you're listening to music oftentimes. Like I use headphones all the time. So I'm listening to music or I'm listening to a podcast while I'm polishing or while I'm doing different work that takes a longer time. So I wasn't able to do that because the phone is the thing doing the recording, and it is also the source of my media. Obviously there are ways around that. But what I decided to do was look at an action cam. So I picked up this is an Osmo Action. It's DJI makes these. DJI makes drones and a lot of other video capture equipment. The Osmo Action is a 4K camera. It worked decently well. It's very similar to like a GoPro Hero. So the problems that I had with the Osmo, one, you can't change the lenses. I mean, there are like screw-on lens caps that give you different appearance, but you really can't change the lens. The 4K performance is okay, but the battery life is horrendous and it has thermal issues, so it creates some issues when you're trying to record longer 4K videos. So this was really short-lived, but it allowed me to use a real external microphone, and I switched to this Rode Wireless Go because there's an adapter that kind of plugs into this, and it gives you, the ability to charge the thing while also having a microphone. So by a real microphone, I mean like a 3.5 millimeter or an XLR connection, like something that would be more mainstream and normal than the Lightning connection in the iPhone. So I used this for a couple of months. It worked decently well, but it was kind of annoying because the battery was always dead and I always had to swap it out. I had 4 batteries that, I always have some on the charger, some in the unit. I'd be swapping them out constantly. And all it takes is for you to have a battery that goes dead when you're mid-recording and you don't realize it, and all of a sudden you did a whole bunch of work that you no longer have footage on. And I've had that happen where I was servicing a car, did a bunch of steps, and completely missed having the recording. So From there, I decided I wanted to get a real camera, not an action cam. I kept the action cam in case I want to do some driving footage, which I may still do at some point. I can do like a tow hook mount or a headrest mount or something like that, windshield mount, etc. So I went to a Sony ZV-1, which is a vlogging camera. So it looks like this. This is the ZV-E10, but it's black and it has a short lens that's built into the camera. So it like opens up and zooms and all of that stuff. So the ZV-1 is designed for vlogging. It does do 4K. It doesn't do 4K well. It has thermal issues. Again, it overheats, it shuts down, it stops recording. The battery life is pretty horrendous, especially when you're in 4K. So I was doing everything in 1080p at that point, and it was okay with doing everything at 1080p, but the lens that it came with was pretty limited, and it wasn't removable or changeable. So Sony released this ZV-E10, which is very similar to the ZV-1, but it is a changeable lens camera. So I purchased this and I sold the ZV-1. The ZV-1 paid for most of this, honestly. This camera is about $1,000 and the ZV-1 I sold for, I don't know, $600 or $700, and that was almost what I paid for it. So I bought the ZV-E10 and I've used that now for about a year. So the entire year of 2023, I've been using the ZV-E10. I started off with a kit lens that it came with. I purchased a Sigma lens, which this is a Sigma Prime. So it's a 16mm fixed. It has a really short f-stop, 1.4. So that means that it'll focus well on one thing, but not the whole scene, kind of. So you'll notice right now that I'm in focus, but also like the stuff that's over there is in focus. On this lens, it's not quite that way. I would be in focus, but the stuff around me wouldn't be. But it's a good camera. It's worked very well. It allowed me to transition to 4K. I still do have battery life issues and I still do have thermal issues. They're not as bad as the ZV-1 was. The battery life on this is probably twice the ZV-1. One of the things that really helped that was I bought an external monitor that mounts on my tripod, and I keep the display on this off when I'm recording, and that almost doubled the battery life. Still, if it's outside and it's in the sun and I'm like trying to record a wash sequence or something like that, I still have to keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't overheat and shut down, which can be really annoying because, you know, you're in the middle of washing a car and the camera overheats and shuts off, which I appreciate it protecting itself. But, you know, now it's like I can't pause washing the car in order to let the camera have a break. So you end up just missing a whole section of your sequence, or recording it on an iPhone or, you know, something like that, if you even realize the camera went and shut down, which is another thing that often happens. You don't realize the camera shut down. Still able to use my Rode mic with it. That's worked fine. But this camera has allowed me to transition into being better at working with a true camera, like an actual legitimate camera. So this has a couple limitations. Number one, it is what they call an APS-C. So my new camera is full frame. This is APS-C, which means that the sensor is cropped. The sensor is smaller. The physical thing that accepts light and picture is smaller than it would be in what they call a full frame camera, which is what like a professional would use. Because of that, it doesn't have as good of low light performance, and the field of view is smaller. So you need to run shorter lenses to get the same picture that you would on a full frame, if that makes sense. So that can be problematic in a setting like my garage that is fairly tight. When I only have a couple places where I can put the tripod, I need it to be able to see what I'm actually doing. So like when you've got the camera underneath the car and the car's on a lift, well, the lift is only like 18 inches off the ground. So I need the camera to be able to see the whole bottom of the engine so that you can get a clear understanding of what I'm working on. And that's really hard. So I bought the 16mm fixed lens that made things better, but it's still not fantastic. So I've decided to invest in a full frame camera, and a full frame mirrorless camera that does 4K constantly without me having thermal issues. So now we get to picking a brand. And picking a brand is important. And the reason why is because lenses are incredibly expensive and lenses are not cross-platform. meaning a lens for a Sony doesn't fit a Canon. There are adapters that can make that happen, but the adapters are not always 100% reliable, and depending on the camera and the lens, you may run into issues. So they're not generally well liked in the industry. So if you're going to be buying a camera, there's this saying that you marry a lens and rent the body. So you rent the body of the camera, meaning you buy a lens that you're going to keep and use for a long time. You buy a body of a camera that meets your needs and understand that eventually at some point in the future you're going to have to upgrade it because there will be new features, there will be new settings, there will be new whatever that you need that that body of that camera doesn't do. So the idea is generally that you buy a great lens that is going to be compatible with your cameras in the future. And if you're switching brands all the time, it's really hard to do that. So I was torn between Sony, Canon, Nikon. And the Sony that I was looking at was the Alpha 7 IV, which is the camera it's the one that does 4K and has a flip out screen and kind of meets all of my needs. On the Canon side, I was looking at the R7, and I can't remember what Nikon, maybe Z8. But you know, those were all kind of at the top of my list, and I was looking back and forth between those cameras. So I actually ended up not getting any of those. And there's this YouTube channel that I follow. It's Andrew Robinson, and Andrew Robinson is a like an electronics channel. So they specialize in home audio, home theater, both 2-channel and home theater, and TVs. So it's primarily, you know, TVs, some projectors, mostly speakers, home theater receivers, 2-channel amplifiers and receivers, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I've watched that channel for a long time. I've gotten a lot of recommendations from that channel, like my Onco RZ50 that I have and love, my my Revel bookshelf speakers that are in my office, etc. So I asked them what their opinion was on Sony versus Canon and what way that they would go for a channel or for a camera for a YouTube channel, because they know that I have a channel and they have an established channel as well. And they're also actually photographers, and they've done weddings and things like that in the past. So they told me that they shoot Panasonic and they really like Panasonic, and that for the money, Panasonic is a fantastic value, that they have great lenses, great optics, and to look at the S5 specifically. So I started looking at Panasonic, and specifically the S5X Mark II was the camera that I landed on. And that camera shoots 6K, which I don't need 6K. I need 4K, and I need 4K reliably. But because the camera shoots 6K, that means that it has the thermal efficiency to deal with 4K for a longer length of time. So it'll do a 6K video for up to 30 minutes. It'll do a 4K video infinitely, as long as your battery and memory hold out. It has the ability to shoot in a lot of other formats. It can record as MOV, MP4, or Apple ProRes. It can do higher bitrate recording, and it is a true full frame camera without a cropped sensor that I can grow into. So looking at that compared to the Canon and the Sony, the camera itself is about $500 less expensive. The Sony that I wanted, the A7 IV, for example, is about $2,400. I bought the Panasonic for about $2,000 with a lens. It came with a 50mm fixed, I think it's an f1.4, f1.8, I don't have it sitting here, which is a good prime lens for like general scenery photography, kind of out and about. And then I bought another lens, which is a Panasonic branded, a Lumix lens, which is a 14-28 regular zoom lens. And the 14mm gives me a really wide field of view, so you can see that right here. We can see a very large portion of the garage. There isn't a lot of distortion. The optical clarity is fantastic. The autofocus is immediate, and it works incredibly well. So it has significantly better battery life than the Sonys that I'm used to, which is awesome. That's one of my biggest concerns. It's like when I'm recording a video, I want to spend as little time messing with the camera as possible and as much time building content as possible. Like, remember, I have a full-time job. So I'm, releasing 2 or 3 videos a week on average. Those videos are, approximately 15 to 30 minutes in length. So that means that in order for me to make, let's just say I'm doing a single 1-hour video. Well, set up the camera, get the lighting right, work on everything, start the recording. A 1-hour video is probably going to take about 2 hours to record. Because generally there's, stuff that happens, you have to say things multiple times, maybe something comes out that it's not exactly how you want it, and you want to rephrase something. Maybe the lighting isn't right, whatever that may be. Or you're just explaining stuff to the camera, which means that it takes you longer. I can wash my car in about 20 minutes off camera. With the camera on, it's easily 45. So an hour video would take 2 hours of recording. Then you take that and transfer it to your computer. Then you edit that video, and that editing process takes at least as long as the raw footage that you took, usually probably 1.5 times that. So a 1-hour video is probably about 3 hours of editing. And then there's the upload process to YouTube. Then there is writing the descriptions and all of that just to get to the end, which is having the video that people can actually watch and communicate with you, which is the goal. In my opinion, that's the goal, right? You want to build community. You want to communicate with other people. You want to share things that you're passionate about. That's why you build a channel, right? So for me, it's about the comments. It's about the communications with other people. It's about having people suggest things that they think I should try or like, or just sharing my experiences with other people. And the longer it takes to get to that, the more discouraging it can be, and the more time consuming it can be, and then the less content you're actually delivering. And there have been a lot of times where I've recorded full videos that have never actually made it to YouTube because of, hey, there's no audio on this entire video. Or there's the battery went dead halfway through it and I can't just show half of the video and I can't go back and redo it. You can't like redo an oil change. I guess you could if you went and bought all new stuff, but it's just not reasonable to do so, right? So for me, I want something that I can set up. I don't have a cameraman. I want it to be reliable. I want it to work well. I want it to have great battery life. I want it to be able to shoot 4K pretty much all day. And I want it to have, good control, good audio quality, and to be something that I can grow into because I am not the best photographer. I'm not the best videographer. And there are still a lot of settings that I'm figuring out how they work and teaching myself new things. For me, if I was able to give myself a message in the past, I would say, set aside like $5,000 and spend it on a really good camera setup. I'm talking a camera body that's around $2,000, a lens that's around $1,000, $700 or $800 on a really good tripod, and then like $700 on a microphone, and another $500 on lighting, somewhere in that neighborhood. Because I've now done it 4 times and 5 times, and truly every single one of them has had their problems. Every single one of them has been, when you're compromising in cost, you're also compromising in performance. And that's been really annoying and discouraging. And that makes it difficult to produce content because you're fighting with a camera instead of doing the actual stuff that's building the content. So for me, at this point, I really like my S5X Mark II. I plan to keep this for a long time, probably until another iteration comes out that has some significant feature enhancements. Ideally, I would keep this lens because this is a Panasonic S lens that would be compatible with any Leica L-mount cameras. From a microphone perspective, I switched from the Samson microphone to the Rode microphone. And the Rode Wireless Go is decent. It is not great. The battery life isn't fantastic. It's okay, but you have to plug it into USB-C to charge it, so you can't just like swap out batteries. It's fine. The lavalier that Rode sells doesn't sound very good. I'm actually using, this is the Sennheiser lavalier. It just happens to be plugged into my Rode microphone, and I think that works well. Ideally, you want the Sennheiser wireless transmitter and receiver pack with this microphone. So I'll post a link in the description to the one that you want. It's next on my list for something that I'm going to be picking up. But the Rode does a good job. If you did need to cut somewhere and spend a little bit less money, it is definitely an option. It's way better than like the Samsung Go mic, but it's still not great. I would recommend if you could, investing and buying the Sennheiser mic. And then last, the tripod. So I'm currently using a Sirui tripod, Sirui is the brand, and I've done a video on this before, and I actually like the tripod. It's carbon fiber, it's super light, it's tall, it works well. The one thing that I don't like about it is the adjustment. You have to loosen up the legs in 4 places, each leg 4 places. So there's like 12 loosenings to shrink it down, and then 12 tightenings to lock it into place. And Sirui just came out with a tripod that has a single lever on each leg, and it can collapse and expand very easily. There's a couple other companies that make those, like Schlader and Manfrotto. Those tripods are in like the $2,000 to $3,000 range. The Sirui is like, it's $550, and then you end up needing a ball head for it, which is, you know, somewhere in the $150 range. So reasonably, it's $700 for a really, really nice tripod. So that's something that's also on my list. So ideally, this year, I would like to pick up the Sennheiser wireless microphone pack. I would like to pick up that Sirui tripod that I talked about, and I would like to keep this camera set up and just get it dialed in and keep working with it. One of the things that I did this year in 2023 is I signed up for Skillshare, and I started doing classes on Adobe Premiere, and I'm going to start doing some on videography and just trying to make myself better, because I know I'm to the point now where my gear is better than I am. And now it's like, okay, well, the limiting factor is me. So I need to make myself better in order to make the content better. And that's something that I'm working on as well when I have time to do so. Like I mentioned, it's a little hard. Like I said, I do have a full-time job. I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. And then separately, I'm dropping on average 2 to 3 videos a week. And those take me 3 or 4 hours per video to actually set up, record, edit, upload, write descriptions for, post, and interact with comments and respond to questions and, you know, things like that. So it's taken me, it takes a large amount of time to do this. And I have a family and, you know, other commitments as well, of course, that I have to juggle along with that. So my goal here this year is to get the camera setup dialed in, get quality video in, to get quality video out, so that I can spend less time screwing around with cameras, less time editing, and more time actually doing things that generate content. One other thing about this camera is it can record directly to an SSD. So historically I record to an SD card, a single SD card. And if you have a problem with the SD card, 1, you lost all your footage. And then 2, when you're done recording, you have to take that SD card, put it in a reader, and transfer it all over to your computer. So a couple companies make external SSDs that are USB-C. This camera can plug into one of those directly. It can record to it directly. And then I can actually edit on that directly and upload the video into YouTube. So it can cut down the amount of time between when I record something and when I'm actually getting to editing it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope that you're having a great day.